As the great home run race of 1998 faded further into the rearview mirror, it didn't seem possible that anyone could ever dethrone Mark McGwire as baseball's new single-season home run king. Seemingly, 70 home runs was one of those records destined to live on forever, like Ty Cobb's .366 lifetime batting average and Cy Young's 511 career wins. In reality, however, McGwire was just a placeholder for an even more vaunted slugger who promptly claimed baseball's most hallowed single-season record for himself in one of the most exceptional individual seasons the game has ever seen. As the 21st century got underway, baseball had slugged its way back into America's hearts after chasing fans away with the cataclysmic 94-95 strike. The recipe for that reconciliation was simple: home runs, and lots of them. In the wake of the strike, home run totals across Major League Baseball exploded to unprecedented levels, a phenomenon powered by rampant performance-enhancing drug use. However, in the halcyon days of the late 1990s, before the Balco scandal and Jose Canseco's whistleblowing and the Mitchell report exposed the ugly truths of the steroid era, nobody cared to rain on this home run parade that was enrapturing fans like never before. America's renewed enchantment with baseball hit its peak in 1998, when Mark McGwire and Sammy Sosa chased down Roger Maris's single-season home run record over the course of one unforgettable summer. In the end, McGwire emerged as baseball's new single-season home run king, having clobbered 70 long balls, 4 more than Sosa, who himself easily cleared Maris's former record of 61. And just as Maris's record had stood for decades, it seemed like McGwire's would as well. 70 homers was downright unthinkable, even in this new era of inflated home run totals. In fact, over the next couple seasons, the only player who came even close to threatening McGwire's record was Mark McGwire, who crushed 65 dingers in 1999. The following year, nobody in Major League Baseball hit more than 50. Seemingly, McGwire's hallowed place in the annals of baseball history was secure. Nope. Only 3 years removed from McGwire's record-breaking season, one of baseball's most decorated stars launched a campaign to unseat Big Mac and claim the sport's most revered single-season record for himself. But it wasn't Sosa or Ken Griffey Jr. or Vladimir Guerrero or Jeff Bagwell. Rather, it was Barry Bonds, a perennial all-star and then 3-time MVP who was showing no signs of slowing down at the age of 36. In fact, in 2000, Bonds clobbered a then career-high 49 homers en route to a second-place finish in National League MVP voting, a monster year that put him on the precipice of one of baseball's most distinguished clubs. Coming into the 2001 campaign, Bonds sat just 6 homers shy of joining the illustrious 500 home run club, a feat that would ostensibly cement him as a future Inner Circle Hall of Famer, just like his godfather, the great Willie Mays. Little did everyone know, however, that Bonds was about to author the most spectacular individual season the game had ever seen, a season that would reshape Bonds' legacy and solidify his now controversial baseball immortality. He didn't waste any time either. On opening day in 2001, Bonds, the linchpin of a Giants team with World Series ambitions, took Woody Williams deep to center field for his first homer of the season and career home run number 495.
He hits one high. He hits it deep. It is out of here. He's 5 shot.
Following that opening day blast, Bonds actually fell into a mini slump, going just 2 for 26 over his next half-dozen contests. He admitted that the pressure of reaching that looming milestone was getting to him. It wasn't long, however, until Bonds broke out of his funk. On April 12th, Bonds smashed his second home run of the year, an opposite field solo shot off Adam Eaton. He then homered again the next day, and the next day, and the day after that. And when the Giants opened up a 2-week homestand 2 days later, with Bonds sitting at 499, the suddenly red-hot slugger extended his dinger streak to 5 consecutive games with career home run number 500.
Nobody out. Deep to right field. This one is on its way to McCovey Cove. Number 500. It's into the water. Unbelievable.
If you thought that milestone blast would mark the end of Bonds' torrid stretch, though, you're sorely mistaken. Bonds homered yet again the following night, becoming just the 13th player ever to go deep in 6 straight contests. Not even 2.5 weeks into the season, and despite an early 0-for-21 stretch, Bonds already had 7 homers in 13 games. He was on pace for 87. Amazingly though, his early season power surge wasn't even that amazing, relatively speaking. By mid-April, Bonds was merely 3rd in his own division in homers, behind both Larry Walker of the Colorado Rockies and Luis Gonzalez of the Arizona Diamondbacks. And as the calendar flipped to May, Bonds still trailed Gonzalez, who was pacing the major leagues. As it turned out though, Bonds' 11 homers in April were merely a warm-up. It was in May that Bonds truly found his groove, putting together a month that left the baseball world in awe and put McGwire on notice. Over the course of 27 games that May, Bonds walloped an unthinkable 17 homers, 3 shy of the most ever in a calendar month, a record incidentally that Sosa set in June of '98. Later on in the month, just like he had in April, Bonds went deep in 6 straight contests, only this time his streak featured 2 multi-homer games, including a 3-homer outburst on May 19th. All told, in that 6-day span, Bonds went deep 9 times. Then, to close out the month, Bonds put up another multi-homer effort on May 30th, bringing his total to 28 for the season. 28! Before June. Suddenly, not only had Bonds overtaken Gonzalez and Walker and everyone else in the league, but he was also outpacing McGwire, who had 27 homers at the end of May in '98. Even by the steroid-inflated standard of the day, this was not normal. The baseball world recognized that something special was brewing in San Francisco. Fans started flocking to Pacific Bell Park like never before, eager to get a glimpse of Bonds' potentially historic season. That year, in fact, for the first time in their more than 4-decade history in San Francisco, the Giants led the National League in attendance. Bonds, however, was loath to acknowledge his potential to rewrite history. In fact, when reporters broached the possibility of Bonds breaking McGwire's record, the notoriously prickly slugger called it ridiculous to discuss such a thing in May. As he eloquently explained, "I could be hit by a truck tomorrow." Bonds, however, managed to avoid getting hit by a truck and proceeded to continue tormenting National League pitchers. In the first week of June, Bonds homered another 4 times. In fact, through the first 3 weeks of June, Bonds never once went more than 3 games without going deep. Heading into the final week of the month, Bonds had 39 homers, more than any player had ever hit in the first half of the season, and it seemed inevitable that he'd have 40+ by the All-Star break. But he didn't. Instead, with the season's unofficial halfway point looming, Bonds fell into a rut. Over his final 13 games ahead of the All-Star break, Bonds didn't hit a single homer, by far his longest drought of the season, and one that cast doubt over the historic campaign that seemed increasingly inevitable weeks prior. When Bonds and his fellow All-Stars headed to Seattle for the Midsummer Classic, the slugger remained at 39. An incredible, record-breaking number to be sure, but only 2 ahead of where McGwire was at the break in '98. If Bonds was going to dethrone him as the home run king, he had little margin for error in the second half. He needed to get back on track, and quick. And he did. Well, sort of. In the Giants' first game of the second half, Bonds promptly rediscovered his stroke, blasting his 40th of the year in his first at-bat of the game. His pace, however, remained sluggish from that point onward. Despite notching 2 more multi-homer games over the next 2 weeks, Bonds finished with only 6 home runs for the month of July. Heading into August, Bonds was stuck at 45, which meant he needed to hit 26 homers over the season's final 2+ months to take the record from McGwire. Suffice it to say, the pressure on Bonds was extraordinary day in and day out, and doubly so with the Giants battling for an NL West division title. But in the face of mounting attention and scrutiny, some of which even came from teammate Jeff Kent, Bonds locked in once again. Over the course of August, Bonds practically homered every other day, cranking 12 long balls in 26 games and never once going more than 3 straight games without going deep. And he only upped that pace once September arrived, going yard 3 times in the first week of the month to hit 60 for the year, then tying and quickly surpassing Maris's erstwhile record with an unforgettable 3-homer outburst on September 9th. With roughly a month left in the season, Bonds was only 7 homers shy of McGwire's record. Baseball immortality was within reach. And then disaster struck. 2 days after Bonds hit 61, 62, and 63, terrorists flew 2 hijacked planes into New York's Twin Towers, altering the course of history and bringing the 2001 season to a grinding halt. For a week, As America attempted to process the unimaginable tragedy of 9/11, no games were played. Suddenly, Bonds' pursuit of McGwire's record and the Seattle Mariners' quest for the best regular season ever ceased to matter. But baseball is a constant in America, a fixture in good times and bad. And in the wake of this transformative tragedy, it was baseball that a grieving nation turned to for a distraction and for hope. So, after a week-long pause, the baseball season resumed. And while some wondered if the tragedy might derail Bonds' momentum, the slugger picked up right where he had left off. Over his final dozen games in September, Bonds collected another 6 homers, putting him at 69, one shy of the record, heading into the final week of the regular season. Bonds was on the precipice of history. It seemed all but inevitable now, except no pitcher wanted to be a footnote in Bonds' biography. Though pitchers had generally pitched around Bonds all year long, the Astros took that cautiousness to a different level when the Giants came to Houston for their penultimate regular season series. With their division title on the line, the Astros walked Bonds 5 times across the first 2 games of a 3-game set, much to the chagrin of the Giants, baseball fans everywhere, and notably, Bonds' children. Finally though, in the 9th inning of the series finale, with the Giants blowing Houston out, Bonds got a pitch to hit. And he didn't miss it.
Bonds with a drive. Looks like number 70 for Barry Bonds. And it is. Tying the all-time record set in 1998 by Mark McGwire. Barry Bonds hits home run number 70 at Enron Field.
Just 3 years after McGwire had supplanted Maris as baseball's single-season home run king, Bonds had joined him on that proverbial throne. And he wasn't finished yet. The following night, after returning home to San Francisco for a season-ending 3-game set against the Dodgers, Bonds took the single-season home run crown for himself.
In this first inning, so he's gone to the stretch rather than winding up.
Bonds hits it! Deep to right field! Way back! Is this the one? There's a new record holder! The single-season mark is 71! Barry Bonds has the title!
Amazingly, after that indelible moment, in his first at-bat as the home run king, Bonds put some distance between himself and McGwire, blasting number 72.
1-1, hit in the air to center field, 399!
Do you believe it? The home run record is gone! There's a new one! 72! Barry Bonds!
In an awkward twist, the Giants ended up losing that marathon of a game, eliminating them from postseason contention and making for a complicated evening emotionally. But while their fans may have bemoaned a missed opportunity, nobody doubted that they had just witnessed history. Bonds, in the face of unimaginable, unrelenting pressure, plus a uniquely destabilizing interruption to his season, had broken what looked to be an unbreakable record. And because why not, Bonds went deep again on the final day of the regular season, establishing the single-season home run record at 73.
Here's the payoff. A floater to Bonds, and he hits it high. He hits it deep, and it is out here.
That was only one of the myriad records Bonds shattered that year, though. In addition to his 73 homers, Bonds also broke Babe Ruth's single-season record for walks and set post-integration records for slugging percentage, OPS, weighted runs created plus, and wins above replacement. To this day, it remains the second greatest post-integration season ever by Fangraphs wins above replacement, behind only Bonds' 2002 campaign. For his efforts, it goes without saying, Bonds was the unanimous NL MVP in 2001, becoming the first player in history with 4 MVP awards and kicking off a ridiculous late career run of 4 straight MVP seasons. During that stretch, Bonds would go on to break several of the single-season records he set in 2001 and would later become the all-time home run king in addition to being the single-season home run king. Eventually, of course, Bonds' historic 2001 season and his broader legacy would be irreparably tarnished by his connections to performance-enhancing drug use. In fact, Bonds himself came to epitomize the steroid era, and it's undoubtedly his suspected steroid use that has kept him out of the Hall of Fame. Still, while Bonds remains a divisive figure today, there's no debating that his record-breaking 2001 campaign was one of the true marvels in baseball history, a bona fide sight to behold, and one of the most incredible, jaw-dropping seasons the game will ever see. Thanks for watching. If you like this video and want to see more content like this, hit that subscribe button.